What's up, everybody? If you're listening to the Food Origins podcast or watching it on YouTube, you'll know that this podcast is sponsored by Firecracker Farm out of Florida. Alex and his family have a small business where they infuse hot peppers into sea salt. Their main one, bread and butter, is Three Kings. It's got Ghost, Scorpion, and Reapers. If you guys have probably seen me using this probably over a year now on Instagram. I post a lot of different recipes. I've got a blog on their website, firecracker.farm, for recipes, and a discount code for 10% off is Food Origins Pod C at firecracker.farm. 10% of the proceeds go to Pipe Hitter Foundation and Operation 300. So make sure you check that out. Appreciate your support, and thanks for listening. Enjoy the show.
She was watching you and Eduardo on the Yeti films, and now that Yeti film is like 7 years old. So
yeah,
it's pretty cool to now both have you on, and so it's an honor to have you on today, and we'll get going here in a second. I'm just letting it set up. It's starting to record.
No worries.
And
give me a sec. I'm still trying to adjust this mic a little bit. The audio levels are good.
Yeah, closer to you the better, though.
All right.
That way you don't have to kind of do one of these things. Yeah.
Is that good?
Yep.
All right, cool.
All right. Welcome to another episode of the Food Origins podcast. My guest today, I'm very stoked to have him on, is Ranga Perera. He's from Sri Lanka all the way to Montana. We'll get into that whole story. He's a professional chef, an angler, an outdoorsman. I found him on the Hungry Life series that Yeti Films put on, along with Chef Eduardo Garcia. Shout out to Eduardo. Had him on not too long ago. And I was up in Montana for that one. And I wish I was up in Montana to see you, Ranga, but thank you for being on. And I appreciate you taking the time out today.
Well, thank you, David. It's so good to be here. Thank you for the invitation. I'm honored. I was looking at the roster of every single person that you've had on, and I'm like, oh my God, you've had some amazing conversations with some serious chefs. Chef Taku, I've been following for years, obviously working with Chef Eduardo Garcia and being able to do a lot of cool projects and meals with him. So absolutely honored to be here with you today. Thank you so much.
Yeah, you're welcome. And you have a hell of a story, my friend. So we're going to get into it. Give us your kind of ethnic background, and then what I like to usually start out with, and I think Chef Chris Constantino was saying it the other day, I usually ask about your childhood eats, but he asked even better was your taste memory. So I know you've got a lot of those.
Yeah, I do.
And that kind of get us started with that.
So I was born in Sri Lanka, and for those that don't know, Sri Lanka is a little tiny island off the coast of India. It's not India. We're a separate country. Very different cuisine style, very different culture, different language. And it being an island, there's definitely an island vibe to it as well. There's, especially when you're closer to the coast, just very, very chilled out, and people are just all about community and food. And it was an environment where anyone could drop in at any time. So you'd be like hanging out, doing homework, and all of a sudden people show up. And so you feed them and you give them tea and biscuits being cookies out there, and things like that. So it was a very, very social, community-driven culture that I grew up in. And I also split my time in the Middle East in Oman. My dad worked in Oman, which is about a 3-hour flight from Sri Lanka. That was one of the places there were a lot of job opportunities in the 70s. And so I went back and forth a pretty good amount. And I was 9 when we moved to the US, to Southern California, out in California, outside of LA, excuse me. And from there, got exposed to Mexican food and Vietnamese food and Thai food and all the stuff that I didn't grow up with. And from there, then moved to Berkeley to go to college. And that just popped my brain, being in the Bay Area. LA has got an amazing food scene. And then there's San Francisco in the Bay Area that has an amazing scene, but it's different. And from there, my love for food was absolutely solidified. And shortly after that, I graduated in 2002 and then moved to Montana in the summer of 2004. So I'm coming up on 21 years this April of being in Montana, and fell in love with it. It was supposed to be a summer job, and here I am.
And with that note, like, what'd you eat growing up?
A lot of different stuff. Sri
Yeah.
Lankan food is an amazing amalgamation of different cultures. We were on the old spice routes, so all of the traders that would go from Malaysia, Indonesia, they would go through India and all these different countries and go to the Arabic countries and also into Eastern and Southern Africa. So we have this very unique cuisine style. And for me, what really stands out, it's almost like a mix between Indian food and Thai food. Very fragrant, lots of curry, but also a lot of lemongrass and ginger and tamarind. And it's really, really spicy. So when I was very, very young, they didn't feed us a lot of spice. You kind of graduated up. So you start off with
Right.
white curry, which is basically just coconut milk and maybe a little bit of turmeric, and then they start to build you up. But by the time you're 6, 7, 8 years old, you're just burning your face up with how spicy the food is. A
Wow.
lot of rice, a lot of lentils, and a lot of coconuts, so different coconut relishes. We call it coconut sambal, some spicy, some not, depending on exactly what you're eating, and a ton of seafood. Beef was very, very expensive. Chicken was a luxury item, but crab curry is one of my absolute favorites. Different preparations of shrimp, different fish curries as well. And growing up, I actually didn't like fish. And now I'm starting to understand that it's because I'm a quote unquote super taster, but we didn't have that language when I was young. So it was too strong for me, especially when for breakfast, I can't do fish. It's the same reason that even now, the first thing that I have in the morning cannot be coffee. I cannot consume coffee in the first couple of hours of being awake, because then for the rest of the day, all I taste is coffee. And it's just,
Interesting.
yeah, it's just how my palate is. And I don't make it, before I'm like, oh, yeah, whatever. And now I'm like, you know what? This is exactly how my taste buds operate. So we need to calibrate accordingly. So I have to be very, very conscious of especially those first couple of hours of my day. It needs to be real clean, real light. And then from there, I can build up. And so that's what we grew up eating in Sri Lanka. Tons of tropical fruit. My favorite fruit is mango. And we had other stuff like, I don't know if you've heard of durian. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, durian's a controversial thing.
You either like it or you don't. Yeah.
Yeah, man. And I loved it. I mean, my dad, my mom, my brother and I would eat it, but my cousins wouldn't eat it. My uncle wouldn't eat it. But it's amazing. It's the only fruit it's literally it's like a creme brulee if you peel it up and chill the pods, and I love it. So papaya, bananas. I mean, in Sri Lanka, there was probably, I mean, I can remember at least 12 or 13 different kinds of bananas, some sweet, some more savory, some for digestion after a meal. So I absolutely love tropical fruits as well. Big love for that. So that, yeah, and a ton of eggs too. Sri Lankans throw a fried egg on everything. And that's exactly how I roll. Eggs are my absolute favorite food to eat. I love eggs. I actually have an egg addiction. I got to be careful, especially with prices going up the way they are. It's getting a
Yeah.
little crazy, but I love them, man. I try to eat them every day.
Yeah. You're gonna have to get some chickens. If you don't have them
Yeah,
already.
yeah. Well, I live in an apartment right now, but that's on the go list for
Yeah.
sure. For
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of us are having the egg struggle right now with the
Yeah,
way things
man.
are going on right now.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure. I was shopping for work a couple of days ago and just empty fridges everywhere. And I just couldn't believe it because eggs are, they go in everything and they were a cheap product for so long. It's interesting to see.
Yeah.
We'll probably be changing our way of eating here for at least a little bit, hopefully. So yeah.
Yeah, hopefully it's not for too long. And
Yep, I agree.
that's I went through a lot of the, some of the adventures you've been on with Stio. Is it Stio or Stio? And
Stio,
then
yep.
Stio. And then your latest show was Flavor on the Fly. I
Yep.
thought was awesome.
Thank you.
And did you have, I know like your mom's crab curry comes up a lot, especially with a lot of the things that you're doing. Did you have an early cooking influence with your mom?
I did. The person who really stands out, actually, my mom is a phenomenal cook, but it was my grandmother.
Mm.
Especially in my time in Sri Lanka, it was my mom's mom. I mean, she passed away almost 30 years ago, and people still talk about her food. She was just an exceptional cook. And I think if she were born now, she would be a top tier chef. No doubt about it. Just the way that she approached food was very different than her peers in the status quo at that point. And when I was young, the kitchen was the domain of women. the men didn't go in there, it's just like you just sat down, you ate, you went about your day. And I was so curious from probably when I was about 3 or 4 years old. One of my scars that I have on a finger was from being in the kitchen with my grandmother and burning myself at 3.5 years old. She couldn't get rid of me, and she would get really upset. She's like, "You can't be in here. Get out of the kitchen." And I'm like, "No, Grandma, I want to know what's going on here." And I was just fascinated by the alchemy that she created. And my first cooking memory of my grandmother finally accepting, okay, I can't get rid of this kid in my kitchen, so I should teach him. He's obviously very curious. And we had an outdoor hearth as part of our cooking setup. And she bought me, it's the Sri Lankan version of an easy bake oven. So it's a terracotta pot that sits on a terracotta stand, and you put sticks in there and you light a fire. And my first cooking lesson, I was probably 4 years old, was a coconut milk semolina pudding with a little bit of ginger and then palm sugar grated on top. And I never ever forgot that, because it was finally my lesson. My grandmother like took the time to show me how to make this thing, and made it, and showed and had me do each of the steps. And I'm salivating as I talk, because I still remember a little bit of that smoke. And the coconut milk was squeezed that morning with fresh grated coconut. It's not a canned thing. Each of those items was top tier, very, very simple, but there was so much attention given to that creative process. And that's my very, very first actual food memory.
Yeah, that's awesome. And did you tell us about your kind of culinary journey? How did you get into cooking? Obviously, you're in Southern California,
Mm-hmm.
and then were you going, did you work in any restaurants early on, or were you going to go completely something else, and then you decided to get into cooking? How did
Yeah,
how did
the
all that
latter.
happen?
Yeah,
Yeah,
the latter. So I was always interested in food, obviously, as I
yeah,
told you, from a young
right.
age. And from there, I, as a kid, I was just always intrigued by it. And when we were in Southern California, getting exposed to all these different new foods, like I love SoCal Mexican food. I mean, it was an epiphany when I walked into my first salsa bar. I was like, dang, what
Yeah,
is all of this? Right? Like,
yeah.
okay. And there's all these pairings and everything. And so I started to just kind of cook a little bit at home. And when I was in my probably about 13, 14, those little omelet bars were super popular at brunch buffets, where you
The
go up to the dude
hotels
and you're
and
like,
stuff.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, exactly. And I was fascinated by that. So every Saturday I would do omelet bar at the house. And so as my mom and my brother, and I'd have everything pre-cut up, and I would, do that. And then I would do the same thing on a weeknight, where I would do the same thing with pasta, like make your own pasta, like customize it
Mm.
to each person. And in looking back, there was the food side of it. But what I realized was I really love the act of giving in that way, and watching people obviously enjoy the meal, but also just the love that they felt, especially when it's someone close to you. And I saw that it was such a gift to make someone happy. Like, they take that first bite and they are just so happy, and giving them that attention. We don't have a lot of that, unfortunately, in the world. And I think that when you're able to take care of someone with your gift, it's a beautiful thing. So I started to focus more on that. And I went to UC Berkeley, which is how I got my time in the Bay Area. And I was originally a pre-business major, and that didn't work out. So I was a political science major. I was fascinated with world politics and why things are the way they are, kind of thing. But in that time at Berkeley, we had all these amazing restaurants. And the first place that blew my mind was Chez Panisse.
Yeah.
I still remember my first meal there. At that point, I'd never really had good oysters or anything like that. And I had their Hog Island oysters. And I'm getting goosebumps, man. I
Mm.
just freaked out. And in that moment, I realized that there was no bad food. There was poorly prepared food. And I just got into it after that. So, much to my mother's chagrin, I started skipping class, and we'd go eat somewhere. These are the days before the internet and before you could just go and type in a recipe or anything like that. So I would go to the main library, the main Stacks library in Berkeley, and I would hunt down cooking books, be like, oh man, how do you make mushu pork? How do you make this? How do you make that? And I would just make it for my friends. And then I got into sushi. So we had this insane Japanese market. It was called the Tokyo Fish Market. And we would just go and, at that point we're in college, man. So we'd drop, $60, which was a lot of money back then.
Yeah.
And we would just buy all this fish and we would, buy sake and all this stuff. And, 10, 12 of us would get together and I would just throw down. And, looking back, it was pretty rudimentary, but that's what got me again into that hosting aspect of, okay, I can cook and I'm going to continue to learn how to cook, but look at how stoked people are. We're eating, we're hanging out, we're building community, we're building memories. And that was a really important aspect for me. And then I started cooking for my friends' parents. They were like, hey, would you come over and make some Sri Lankan food for us? I'm like, yeah, sure, why not? And it just kind of kept building. And I've got to give cred where cred's due. There was a friend of a friend, his name was Joey Patillo. We all went to high school together. And Joey was in culinary school in San Francisco. So on the weekends, he would come out to our place to party and whatever else. And he would bring his syllabus of the week. And he'd say, all right, Ranga, pick a menu. And so I'd pick a menu and we would do the entire menu from start to finish, like everything made from scratch. And then he'd run me through, all right, here's how you own the knife. Here's a brunoise. And he was actually my unofficial first teacher. And then from there, I started to get one cooking job and another cooking job, somehow graduated, barely, but made it through, got the degree. You're welcome, Mom. But was just always intrigued by food and just started to get jobs and learn on site, basically. And the biggest influence for me was when I moved out here on a whim to Montana. There was a really high-end resort called the Yellowstone Club. It's an exclusive place. And I went in and interviewed for a job. And I found out later that they would take a warm body. Let's face it, there was no one out here. But the chef just ran me through the ringer. He's like, okay, let me see how you dice an onion. And so I showed him. He's like, wait, I thought you didn't go to culinary school. And I got to tell him about my friend Joey. And later I found out from my coworkers, they're like, Stanford Asobe never made us do any of that stuff. But Stanford took me under his wing and he literally was like, I'm just going to water this seed, man. I know that you've got so much potential. And then I also linked up at the same place with the only James Beard chef at the time, Chuck Schomer. And Chuck he really made me one of his projects. He still is. I still call him up to this day to ask for advice. And what he taught me was no matter what level you're cooking at, do it right. If you're going to make chicken wings, like don't just throw them in the fryer. Like here are the stages to making a good chicken wing. If you're going to use caviar and truffles, here's how you work with caviar and truffles. And I still remember one day he took me aside and he's like, I know you didn't go to culinary school, but you understand flavor. I can't teach someone flavor, but I can teach them technique. I'm going to teach you technique. He's like, the rest you're going to be able to figure out on your own. And I was 23 at this point, with a degree that I realized very quickly I wasn't going to be using. And he just took it from there and really, really it blossomed. And from there, I did a bunch of traveling. And when I came back, this was in 2007 to Montana, I was the first person to start underground and pop-up dinners out here. And I was having my mom ship lemongrass and curry leaves and all this stuff. And what I would do is once a week, I would host 10 people on donation at my house, because if you cook, people always want to show up. And I'm like, y'all got to contribute. So how about I start to cook some crazier and crazier food and you guys kick in on the grocery bill. And from there, I would pick a theme. Okay, this week's dinner is chili peppers. So we're going to feature a different chili pepper for 5 courses, including dessert. And just went from there. I did a tea-based dinner because my dad's side of the family is from the tea industry in Sri Lanka, which is another way that I got really, really honed in on taste buds and really being able to break down flavors and smell and the look of something. And it just blew up. And in 2012, I was ready to stop working part-time as a server and a bartender at a restaurant and really dig into my cooking. And that's how my business, Lorian's Table, which is named after my dad, was born. And here I am, man, 13 years later, still rocking it.
That's awesome.
I asked Eduardo if I could ask, what I should talk to you about. You went through something that probably no one expects to go through. Why don't you tell us what happened to you when you were turning 36?
Yeah, I was prepping for a dinner. I had a dinner the next day, and so I was just kind of getting everything together, and there was a super rank bottle of kombucha on the counter, and I went to open it and it startled me, and I started to get dizzy and started to see pixels, and like, man, just kind of looking at this kombucha bottle, like, what was in that bottle, man? Like some kind of crazy fungus? Like, what am I hallucinating? What's going on here? And what it turned out to be was a heart attack. And I didn't know it at the time, and I'd called 911, and it took about 30 minutes for the paramedics to get out to me because I was outside of the immediate Bozeman area at the time. And I still remember the EMT. I didn't have chest pains or anything like that. It was just like tingly, couldn't really talk, felt super nauseous. And when I was in the ambulance, all of a sudden I felt that sensation of, the classic hand in the chest, someone like squeezing down on you. And I honestly thought I was dead. And I had the actual full on cardiac arrest. My heart stopped for 4.5 minutes when I was in the emergency room, the operating room. And usually the cutoff for resuscitating someone is about 4 minutes, because at that point there's been a lack of oxygen flow for so long that there's massive organ damage, brain damage, things like that. But these guys kept going and pounding on me and hitting me with the defibrillator and everything, and they saw a little boop and went to work. And I woke up 3 days later, couldn't believe I was alive, and I knew I was alive because all of a sudden I was in an extreme amount of pain. And just I couldn't believe it, because my last thought before that was dying and having the actual arrest. And so when I woke up, my family was there, Eduardo and his family, Eduardo, super supportive guy, and a very, very good friend of mine. And we just went back to work, man, bit by bit. I'm like, okay, fingers are still operating, all right, I can stand up. Okay. I mean, I still remember day one, just in a drugged out haze, asking my brother, like, okay, so where have you guys been eating? And my brother mentioned a local really, really horrible to-go spot. And I'm like, that place sucks, man. And all him and his now wife said was, all right, Ranga's back. Like even in a drugged out post-heart attack haze, food was still like, don't put bad food in your mouth,
Yeah.
And I was lucky, even with my recovery, I didn't have to eat the hospital food. All of my chef friends, Eduardo, Chef Linda Huang, Rob Waltz, and Steve Kuntz, and my entire friend community would just bring me homemade, delicious food. I remember Linda bringing Sichuan style crawfish to the hospital.
Wow.
And the nurses are like, what are you eating? And I'm like, oh, blah, blah, blah. And I just pop one of these things. And she's like, we have never, ever seen this go down in a hospital. And again, I believe that calories and good food sustain, obviously, but that is another example to me of food as a catalyst for community and healing. My friends were taking care of me. They were showing me their love, their concern. And from there, it just started to build back up. And I couldn't wait to get back in the kitchen. I mean, I wasn't cleared to lift up a cast iron skillet for about 3 months because it was too much of a strain on my super weak heart at the time. And it was a few months until the doctor's like, okay, but move slowly. And now I think I shared with you, I'm in a very, very intense cooking period. This is the busiest winter I've had cooking in a while for different clients. And just, I'm tired and all of that stuff. But just to know physically I can do it, and I'm healthy to do it, and to, again, be able to do that for the people that I care about, because my clients are long-standing relationships, has been awesome. But I'll tell you, man, a heart attack will make you reconsider a lot of things. And I would say that the thing that really shifted for me with the heart attack was with how I operate with food is there's make the perfect bite, right? Make a delicious whatever it is. And then the second side of it is create a wonderful experience for people that they're going to remember. And before, it was, if it's a scale, the bite was at the top. Like, we've got to just like wow them, make the craziest bite. And like, yeah, we want a good experience, but it's like here. And now it's this way. Yes, I want the perfect bite. Yes, I want you to I want the table to go quiet when that first bite is taken and let that bite take them to wherever it is that they're taking them. But what drives me now is the experience. It's after that first bite is done and everyone looks at each other and they're like, hey, do you remember when we were in Mexico and blah, 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 and we saw this? And because all of a sudden then conversations coming and we're remembering what we have in common rather than what's different and living in our own world. And that was the biggest shift with the heart attack was, yeah, we're still food driven, but much, much more experience driven now.
Yeah, that's awesome. Tell us about Lauren's Table and what you're providing these days.
Yeah, so again, before the heart attack, it was big events, and Eduardo and I did a couple of big events for the Turner Foundation, 8 days in New Mexico and out in the middle of nowhere, and we're making a meal service at a bat cave where 1 million bats come out at sunset, all this cool stuff that we got to do. And after the heart attack, I'm like, no more 100, 150, 200 person events. We're going to really dial it in. And now my maximum group size is 30. And on average, I would say 8 to about 14 is what I do on a regular basis. And I'm much more on the private chefing end of things now. And so for some clients, it's, doing multiple days of breakfast, lunch, dinner, whatever that is. And for others, especially for folks that I've known for 15, 20 years specifically in Bozeman, it's their 70th birthday celebration, their daughter graduating from medical school, and everyone's flying in. And I just try to make these beautiful meals that, again, celebrate them and bring them together. And that's what I do, but primarily private chef. That's kind of the main focus when it comes to Lauren's Table.
Got it. Are you still doing the angler side as well? Are you doing some fishing experiences as well?
Absolutely. Yeah. So, what I like to say when I'm really hustling with work is flies don't buy themselves. Like fly fishing's an expensive hobby. And when I work, especially for me, it's really easy to justify winter work because I don't really ski or snowboard anymore. I'm like, I like my wrists. I like my knees. We're good. And so I fish a little bit in the winter. Unfortunately, this last few months has been really, really, really cold. So unfishable really for me. But fishing is absolutely a focus for me because it's one of the few things that I can do that really connect me to the healing elements of outdoors. And I'm like a go, go, go case. I don't even consume caffeine anymore because I'm twitchy, dude. I'm a very twitchy person. I don't need it. And fishing is the thing that just brings me down. And I know that with fishing really was healing for me when I first moved out to Montana and I was processing losing my dad to a heart attack when I was 10 years old after we first moved to the States. And then after I had my own heart attack, I hit the river a lot of just trying to make sense of what had happened and oh my god, I'm still alive, and wow, look at the water and look at the fish and look at the eagle, and just bringing that joy back. It's a place for me to gain presence. And what I've been doing a lot with, specifically with my work with Stio, is really trying to marry the concepts of the outdoors and food, because it's bringing you to this present moment, and fishing and cooking do both of those for me. And so when it comes to fishing, more of a summertime activity for me for sure. And it gets me outside. And right now I'm actually working on getting my fishing guide license because I want to start offering that to a select number of folks to actually get them out and take them fishing and cook some trout tacos for them. And hey, man, anytime, man,
Yeah.
you come out. You were saying, you wish we could do this in person. Like, absolutely. But bro,
Yeah.
you didn't want to be here the last couple of weeks. It was in the negatives. It's been gnarly, but come out, man. I would love to get you out. I'd love to make you some, traditional coconut sambal and some sourdough bread, and let's go catch some fish and cook by the fire, dude. Like,
For sure.
I'm all about it.
And there's two things, that I really enjoyed in watching you, kind of take care of somebody along the water was, one, you took the time to kind of meditate before you got started, taking those breaths and kind of slowing things down and kind of almost feeling the energy from the earth, and then you're like, okay, we're ready to go. I really like that. And then yes, putting all of that together, and I've tried to describe that to some people too, is, Eduardo does the same thing. Some of the hunters I know do, but having the chef side as well, you get the full circle of everything. So you're going out fishing, bringing it home. Okay, now what are we going to do with it? Because it's not just, it's just going to sit in the freezer and I'll think about what I'm going to do. Or it just gets shoved in the oven or something. It's like, and then the other part to me, and a lot of people can relate to this, cooking over fire is, you know, as primal as it gets. So kind of explain
100%.
those two things that you do that, you know, really like attaches you to everything that you're doing.
Yeah. So I appreciate you bringing the attention to that meditative aspect. Again, I'm a twitchy dude, so I need to like get present. You know, I'm actually a daily meditator. You know, my minimum goal is 3 minutes a day because sometimes it's busy and you don't have 20, 30, 45 minutes. But you know, I take the time to take a few breaths and just feel it, man. Feel that energy that's around us. I mean, you could call it the force, whatever you want to call it. And I was fortunate when I was 18, I was exposed to Reiki, which is an energy practice. And I'm a level 3 Reiki healer as well and a practitioner. So I work on other people. And so I feel it. And ironically, I feel it in my hands. And, you know, and that's to me, like, so when I'm cooking a meal, I charge it up, man. I'm like, all right, here's my love, here's my good juju, and I'm giving it to you, and let it sustain you in more ways than just calories and just an experience. There is a layer that you may not know is there, but trust me, it's there. That is that extra ingredient, and it's the energy, right? And beyond that, like when you're hunting, when you're fishing, when you're gathering, you know, something from your garden, that's life force. And that life force, you're taking it and you're ingesting it to give you life force. And I think we live in a culture where it's just like people slam stuff and you're like, all right, man, I need the calories, I need the protein. But to be able to take that breath and actually give a little bit of gratitude and just, all right, man, like this deer died for us. And now we're going to make the most ripping venison curry we can. Yes, we want it to taste good, but we need to honor that deer. We need to honor that fish. We need to honor that wild asparagus, and not, you know, we don't need to dwell on it too much. I don't think we need to get too precious about it, but there needs to be an awareness of it, at least for me. And again, you know, bringing up the hospital example, like having Szechuan crawfish. I mean, I could feel the love in that, man. You know, just Linda taking the time to make that, and I ate like 3 of them, you know, but I was so fired up on that because I knew that my friend was taking this beautiful thing that was alive and giving it her attention and giving it to me, which was awesome. And I try to do that with what I do as well. And when it comes to the fishing, sorry, I got a little lost here. What was the second question?
The cooking over fire.
Cooking over fire. Thank you for the reminder.
Yeah, no, it's all good.
Well, for me, fire is caveman TV, right? It's, if there's a flame, people are just drawn to it. It doesn't matter if it's a candle on the table. So even when I cook, I have a ton of candles on the dinner table because sometimes we can't do the open fire. But being able to cook on an open fire, there's 2 sides of it. Number one, it's as primal as it gets, as you pointed out. It is the OG way of cooking something, and it's been done for so long. And the second part of it is with a fire, it's alive and it's constantly shifting. So you need to get present. You can't have 10 things going on if you're cooking over a fire. If you've got an oven, you set it to 350, you stick the cake in, you put your timer for 30 minutes, you're good to go. Walk away and you can get your food processor going. And sometimes I've got to do that, right? But with a fire, if you turn around for a half a second, it's burnt. You've got to be there and it's changing. You need to move stuff and there's smoke flying in your face and you're like, oh my God, I can't see. And you know, there's this whole thing, but you're doing this dance with it. And to me, it brings my own life force because I can feel this other thing. It's not just a cooking element. It's something that's alive. And and if it's alive, it's not static. It's ever shifting, right? People are that way. Pets are that way. Plants are that way. And fire is that way. You can't take it for granted for a single second. And I love that about cooking over fire. I remember I had this horrible job in Alaska. It didn't work out. I was super bummed. I was super depressed. I was like, man, this is not what I signed up for. And I went on a hike and I was just like, man, you know what? There are 2 things that ground you. Number one is eating with my fingers. Like that's what we do traditionally in Sri Lanka. So eating a traditional Sri Lankan meal with my fingers, I'm like, well, you can't do that. You're in the middle of Alaska. You're not going to get coconut sambal and lentils right now. I'm like, what's the other thing? I'm like, start a fire. So I went to this rocky outcropping. I had a lighter and I just had my knife and I took my time and I started with this little tiny couple of sticks and built it and built it and built it until I had a raging fire going. And I just remember staring at this fire and just feeling like, okay, all right, dude, think of some solutions. What do you want to do and everything else? But it was the act of building the fire and watching this thing moving and undulating that got me going again. It ignited me again as well. And when I get to share that with someone in the outdoors, oh man, I am so stoked, because again, we're all present to it, because the fire is going to bring us right together, and we're cooking this fish that we just caught together. And now we're hanging out. You're having a shot of tequila or beer. I'm sipping my own thing. But we're right there. I'm watching the food the whole time, but we're talking. We're talking about our day. We're talking about something that came up. So we are actually connecting in a deeper way. We're connecting with each other and we're connecting with our environment, which again, there's less and less of that, right? There's more and more concrete every day. And I just think it's a beautiful thing. And lastly, on that cooking over fire thing, is it takes me back to that very first cooking lesson when I was 4 or 5 years old. And my grandma was like, all right, we're going to make coconut milk tapioca pudding today. I mean, it takes me back to being a kid and being wide-eyed and being curious and just, wow, okay, cool. I'm going to do this again. And so there's a lot of layers of it for me. But every time I start a fire, I think of my grandma.
That's awesome.
I think of that. It was where it started for me.
That's awesome. And you just mentioned, which I wanted to get into, we're going to get into some of the things that you're cooking and your menu that you kind of been putting out, is cocktails. Every time I'm watching you on some of these kind of, mini experiences that you're doing, you're not only cooking with whoever you're with, you've got a awesome cocktails setup going along with it. Where did that come into? Was that working at the Yellowstone Club? Where did you pick up the kind of cocktail side? Or did you bartend for a while? Like, where'd that come from?
Yeah, I did, man. Well, first of all, I think that I treat a cocktail like I do anything else. It's ingredients, right?
Yeah.
So somewhere in my brain, I'm like, okay, this tequila tastes like that. So what would it pair well with it? And also like being out and checking things out and being like, oh, I've never had this herb, and you taste it. You're like, man, that would be killer in a gin cocktail,
Yeah.
If I taste it and I smell it, it doesn't matter if it's a cocktail or not. It's somewhere in my brain. I catalog it for another time.
Yeah.
But I would say that the curiosity on cocktails really got going. I had the opportunity a while ago to work in Sonoma County in wine country. And I didn't know a lot about wines. I knew I liked it, but I didn't know much about it. And being in that environment, and again, going back to my tea background with my family, I would look at it, I would smell it, and I would taste it, and I was just dead on every time. I picked it up really quickly, and then from there, I started to build on the bartending. And I had a job at the time. It was one of the top restaurants in the Sonoma, Napa area. It was called the Dry Creek Kitchen by Charlie Palmer. This would have been in the early 2000s. And it was just, I mean, the other bartenders were insane. And I just watched them, and we would go to the garden and pick fresh herbs. And I'm like, oh, it's not just a Jack and Coke, right? It's not a rum and Coke.
Yeah.
There is a alchemy to this as well. And so I just took it in full stride. I dug into it. As you would imagine, I would, on my way to work, I would pull over in the summer and pick wild blackberries on the side of the road and use those for cocktails. And just, it was the same attitude as with food. What do I have in front of me that's fresh and seasonal that's going to accentuate these different ingredients? And I think that drinks, with alcohol or without, we like to hold stuff in our hands, coffee, water, whatever. It's just part of how we engage with one another. Tea, right? It doesn't really matter. And so I realized for myself, when I started with those underground dinners I told you about in 2007, it was all, we would do wine pairings and stuff. But when it came to dessert, people would just keep drinking, and not in a judgy way, but I'm like, dude, your wine doesn't go with the dessert. Like, we paired everything accordingly to accentuate both the wine and the food, or the cocktail and the food, right? They go together. They're catalysts for each other. Everything is raised as a result. And so what I started doing was I started doing tea pairings for dessert, because again, I want you to have this exceptional culinary experience and have everything be cohesive and combined. And so when I'm outside, yeah, man, after a day of fishing, I want a cocktail. And again, taking some of that background of being from Sri Lanka and traveling and living in different countries, and also being like, all right, let's use a local whiskey. What can we do with this? And one of my favorite cocktails still is the burnt cinnamon and burnt caramel sauce, a cocktail that I do. Not the burnt and peel. Sorry, I can't think of it off the top of my head. I'll come back to the name on that. Sorry.
Yeah.
But that cocktail, every time I've done it for huge events as well. And people just freak out because it's not the sticky, sweet apple juice and whiskey cocktail. It's a burnt cardamom caramel sauce with Sri Lankan cinnamon. And ironically, when we think of canela, like Mexican cinnamon, Mexico is the #1 importer of Sri Lankan cinnamon. So canela is not Mexican cinnamon. It's actually Sri Lankan cinnamon. And it's completely different, as you know, from drinking horchata and everything else. It's not that hard stick of cinnamon. It's flaky and it's fragrant. And so when I burn a stick of that and fill up your cup with that smoke and then throw in a burnt caramel sauce and apple juice and lemon and whiskey, like you're watching, like we're doing this outside, right? People are like, what is this dude doing? And then it comes together quickly and it tastes it's the perfect balance. And that charred, kind of acrid, just a little bit of bitterness just complements perfectly with the charred food that we're going to eat, and just have that acid that's going to complement the fish, just enough acid to not overpower the fish. And everything again is this harmonious journey. So I'm always thinking of what can we eat, but also what can we drink.
Yeah. I mean, all the pairings, all the different stuff everywhere you were going, even on, get into some of the travel shows you were doing, you've always paired something with it. So it was awesome to see you're just pulling from where you are and then getting that awesome flavor profile. And speaking of flavor profiles, let's get into kind of some of the things you've been cooking. Your menu is obviously expanded to almost anything. Tell us kind of what you're cooking and kind of, tell us what you're offering at Lauren's table.
Yeah. So, I'll be honest with you. For my clients, it's going to be different. It's going to be more akin to what their tastes are. But the longer I work with people, the more and more I'm given leeway, because again, good food is good food, right? If you are able, like if someone doesn't like eggplant, but you are able to make them an awesome eggplant dish, like, oh my God, I've never liked eggplant before. This is amazing. All of a sudden the leeway, like you have much more room to expand on your menus. And so mostly what I do for my clients, I do a ton of omakase. I was able to intern with a couple of amazing chefs, including Chef Jason Leroy, who's a local guy, but he's just, I don't even understand what he does with his sushi. He's a magician. And, sushi is super appealing to me because it is literally one bite and it's done. You're not getting seconds of that. And I love that because you're going to go home and you're going to dream about that one bite that you can't have again until the next time I come and cook for you. And it's the same approach with a lot of the other food, but I really try to combine a lot of the different backgrounds. And so my line with my food is rustic food, global flavors. And I'm not really, yes, I love to do Sri Lankan food. I love to do sushi, but as with what you saw with cocktails and everything else, I'm not locked into how it should be or what's traditional. I'm not trying to break the mold. I'm just letting creativity take me where it wants to take me. And when it comes to like doing flavor on the fly, I remember talking to the team, and I was like, oh my God, this is a great name, and we're combining fly fishing with food. But I told him, I'm like, well, I want you to know from a chef standpoint, on the fly means right now. And usually what I think of, going back to my restaurant days when I used to work at a restaurant, is usually that it was a request that was not on the menu. Like, hey, the so-and-so doesn't eat this thing that you're offering. They don't eat sole. Come up with something right now. I need it in 7 minutes because the husband's already started eating. And I'm like, oh God, okay. And so on the fly means to me, let the environment kind of dictate what we're about to have. What's the inspiration from what you can see? And that was the really cool thing about that show, was being able to, I remember, I'm like, I'm not going to pre-write any of these menus. We're literally going to walk around stores. We're going to go fish. We're going to go mushroom for it. And we're going to go to farms. And whatever it feels like on that day is what we're going to do. And it's sometimes, with my clients, If it's a one-off dinner, it's much more like, okay, here's what we're doing. And there's this process of, all right, let's kind of build a menu together. But if I'm on a multi-day with you, dude, we're 2 hours from the closest grocery store. There's going to be some stuff that's off the menu. It's like we didn't write this, but what do I have to work with? And most of my food, I would say, people have described the food as just a little unorthodox when it comes to the flavors. I tend to not be as salt heavy. I tend to not use a ton of dairy. Love to char everything. Like my cooking style is definitely very high heat in general. There are exceptions to that, but I'll typically cook something really hot and then drop the temperature. But I really love to pull a lot of herbs. If I'm quote unquote cooking Western food, use a ton of thyme. I think thyme is one of the most delicious herbs in the world. I use it for savory applications and for sweet applications. And when it comes to the Eastern equivalent, it's coriander and cilantro. I love making coriander ice cream or coriander cream base, like a cracked coriander seed base. And people are like, wow, this is really perfumey. What is this? I'm like, that's coriander seed. They're like, whoa, no way. And so that's what I do, man. Yesterday, when I did my client dinner, great family, and I do all kinds of stuff. I did a killer risotto last week for them with fresh black truffles and all this stuff. And yesterday, I just kind of threw out a menu. I'm like, hey guys, I love Asian food. What do you guys think of doing some chicken pho and starting with some banh xeo? And they're like, what? And so, all right, banh xeo is this crispy Vietnamese crepe. And what you do is you tear little pieces off, and that becomes the filling for a lettuce wrap with fresh herbs and sprouts and a dipping sauce. And they're like, that sounds bomb. And they literally went through double the apps that I thought they were going to eat. The 3-year-old was like, oh my God, this is awesome. He's just stuffing his face. And then I threw out this beautiful 24-hour chicken broth with star anise and lemongrass and fennel seed, and did a bomber chicken pho for them. And what I've realized is the other thing is people, when you're in your deathbed, you're not craving. Very few people are going to be like, well, I want caviar with truffles. It's going to be a memory of something that you had as a kid, right? Grandma's chocolate chip cookies, or mom's, in my case, it would be my mom's chicken curry or crab curry. Like, you know what I mean? And so I try to appeal to, okay, here's this thing that you may or may not know, but when you eat it, I want it to trigger a memory of your childhood, and I want you to be searching a little bit. And so the cuisine style is not necessarily locked in. The other thing that I've realized, especially for my clients, is I can cook almost anything. I have to present it beautifully. So if I'm doing a curry, it can't just be a pile of curry on rice, which to me, I'm stoked on that, right? But it needs to be beautifully done. And maybe I have to like remove it a little bit, like maybe take the meat off the bone. Whereas like if you're eating at my house, it's coming with the bone on, right? Make it a little bit more appealing, plate it properly, make it beautiful. But flavor is flavor and good food is good food. And so if you're able to present it well, people are going to eat it, man, because there's that visual curiosity, like, whoa, what? This is beautiful. Like, it should feel like you're unwrapping a present, right? And then you take that first bite and you're like, hell yes, this is awesome. So yeah, I hope I answered your question.
No, yeah, I love the variations, and I think that's something that a lot of chefs enjoy doing, is cooking on the fly. I've been put on the spot before. Actually, I was up in Montana, up north, and there was a team of guys that were trying to. There was an event, and I knew the team's Fieldcraft Survival Team, and they were asking me. They're like, "Hey, we've got about like 10 to 15 people. There is no restaurant that's going to take us right now, like with that many people." And they were doing another event the next day, and they're like, hey, we've got this cabin that's got a big kitchen. They're like, can you whip something up for us? And I'm like, yeah, let's go. Let's do it.
Wow. What'd you make? I want to know what you made now.
So I did a like nice and it was kind of a wide group. It was a very like diverse group. So I was like, let me just do what I kind of had on my brain at the time. And I made a nice salad with like avocado, tomato, nice balsamic dressing, fresh herbs in there. So I did that for them. Even little I think I did little blue cheese probably in there or something like that. So a nice salad to start. So I fired that off, got that going. So they're like, "You got that already?" I was like, "Yeah, well, wait till you have what's next." And then I just did. So there's this dish, and my friend Tim, who I had on not too long ago, there's a restaurant in San Francisco called Jackson Fillmore, and Jack will be mad at me, but I figured out the recipe of his dish called chicken nochi. So chicken nochi is this dish that they make there, and it's a like kind of a filleted chicken breast, and it's seared in a pan nicely, and then it's got this white wine cream sauce. It's got garlic in it. There's walnuts at the end. So like it's got this, like garlic cream sauce, and it's got all the flavors. And I never had it until my friend Tim, because their carbonara is really like this. Everything they
Oh
make
man,
is
I'm
phenomenal.
drooling over
Yeah,
here.
yeah. Well, I mean, I tell everyone, if you're listening to this podcast hungry, you're in deep trouble. But everything they make there is awesome. Their tiramisu is awesome. Their carbonara is great. Any of the other pastas, any of their other dishes. And I never had the chicken nochi. And Tim's like, "Well, today I think, he's like, I think you should try it." And I tried it. And I was like, "Oh, I see why you keep coming back to this dish." So that kind of
Wow.
stuck in my head. And I was, as chefs do, we look in the kitchen, look who's doing stuff, we're looking around, and I had to go to the restroom. I went to the restroom. I came out of the restroom, and I was like, "Oh, the line cook's making chicken nochi right now. Let me just lock in over here." And I just kind
Dude,
of was
that's
just like,
awesome.
"Bing! Oh, the wine's going in there. The cream's going in." I was like, and I kind of just locked it in. Like if you've repped enough kind of dishes like that, you're like, okay, as long as I can put those together, I think I can get it right and get that flavor profile. So then I
Yeah.
went home and I kind of made it, and then I made it with Tim like during COVID, because we were doing some COVID cooking with him. He's not a big chef or anything, so he was like, "Hey, teach me how to do some dishes." That was something we did. We did like 5 or 6 things, and that was one of them. He's like, "Hey, man, if you can figure that out, man, we don't we don't have to go anywhere." But that was what I made. So I made the chicken nochi with pasta. So I did like a roasted garlic, like white wine sauce over pasta, and then I added like creminis, and then some chicken, and I had basil in there, which I don't usually do, but I was like, let's just throw some fresh basil in there, and then
Yeah,
they
man.
just
Some
mashed
color
that up.
pop, some appeal.
They just
Yeah.
they just they just crushed it. Yeah.
Oh, they must have been stoked. That
Yeah.
sounds
Oh,
so bomb. That sounds
yeah.
really, really
So
good.
I love doing that on the fly stuff. Like, when I worked in the department, I cooked for the troops all the time.
Okay.
All the officers, usually holidays, are like, "Dave, like it's 4th of July, we're working," because we're always working for the most part. We don't have those days off. Restaurants as workers as well, there's no days
Right.
off for the most part. You're
Right.
working every holiday because it's important days to be out there. And yeah, I would be cooking whatever tri-tip. I've done a turducken one
Wow.
year for holidays. I didn't make the turducken. We had this butcher that did it, but we sought it out, and we're like, this would be cool. I've never even seen one. I've never even made one. Yeah. And then we roasted it, and it was cool. Yeah. You get that slice through, and it's turkey, chicken, and duck all in one slice,
Wow.
which was a trip. Yeah. So like, yeah. And I love that aspect, right? Like, I think we enjoy seeing that aspect, and then yeah, once I get that full enjoyment as well, seeing someone happy with that first bite and the second bite, and like, damn, dude, this is killer. Like, when is the next meal, like, well, I'm coming back for
Yeah.
this. And so
That's
that's like
exactly it.
always the enjoyment. And then like, after my mom passed away, like a lot of the cooking attachment was with her, and also like as I went through my career. But like that part of it also, cooking becomes therapeutic for me. It's like that attachment to her, and it's also that time where like, hey, you know what? If I don't feel good today, I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna make gyoza today.
Yeah.
Something my mom used to make all the time, and I'm like, no one else can make this gyoza except me today. Like, I'm making it. I'm in the zone. I'm going to go get some ingredients. You kind of go through that process, and then you kind of make it, and then you share it, and then you're just like, oh, you know, that's that feeling of giving out and service and all that stuff. Like all those things are coming
Absolutely.
into play, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you nailed on something. There's something cathartic about it, right? Like the gyozas is a great example. Like you're like, all right, this is my focus. I need to just I don't want anyone else messing with me. It's not about how fast it's going to come out or anything like that. This is my deal. Get out. Like I need this time to myself. And yeah, I'm totally there with you. I've got a couple of things that I do like that too, where, I love cooking with other people and collaborating, but every once in a while I'm like, nope, this is me solo. Like I want to dice these onions and I want to make sure that this is just my jam. This is what I need to do right now. Yeah, that's awesome.
Do you have a favorite that you're always making? Like everyone's coming back to you going, Ranga, you got to make this. I know that you have such a varied menu, but are they always bugging you for something? A lot.
Yeah. Let me, man, I would say that like, I'd have to like classify that by cuisine style a little bit.
Well, I mean, are they, constantly bugging for curry dishes? Probably, right?
Yeah. I mean, with my clients, it's a little different, right? But if it's like if it's the homies, there's two things that come up a lot. Three things actually. And the last one you're going to laugh at because I started with that in college. The first two things are going to be my lentils, which were inspired by my mom. So in Sri Lanka, it's like beans on the table for my Mexican crew back home in LA. It's like it's always on the table. Crimson lentils with turmeric. But my mom makes the best lentils and I've been chasing this for years. And it sounds super like you're like, dude, lentils really? And finally, after 25 years of trying to do this, I finally have it down. And even just the other day, I made it for a client. The client's freak, but my really good friend Tony was helping me out that night. And he's like, bro, your lentils, man. I just don't understand. He was just like going back for thirds in the back pantry, just like mobbing up lentils. So I would say that comes up a lot. The second is a coconut sambal. It's a spicy coconut relish that I make. Everyone makes it differently according to their family and their region in Sri Lanka and everything else, but that's something I do well. Oh my God, now I'm on a Sri Lankan train. Appa. Appa is this. It's a fermented rice flour and coconut milk crepe. And so you get this batter bubbling and you have these special pans that are bowl shaped. And if you get the batter right, when the batter hits the pan, it's like lace on the sides. And then as it drips down, it gets a sponge on the bottom. That's the only thing to this day my mom was like, you do this better than me. And I literally I was like, did everyone hear that? Did everyone hear that? Because mom is, she's stingy with the compliments when it comes to Sri Lankan food. She loves my other food. So I'd say those three things with Sri Lankan food. When it comes to other stuff, this sounds silly, but I make a killer steak, especially really large cuts. So if you give me like a 40-ounce tomahawk, I just crush it. I use a ton of herbs. I use roasted garlic oil as opposed to fresh garlic. And again, it's like that cooking over fire thing. Like when you're cooking a huge steak, you're not multitasking. That's what you're doing. And so I would say that's another thing that people love. For my clients, the other dish that comes up a lot, and it's a variation of a Sri Lankan item, but again, presented really beautifully, is a Sri Lankan style deviled lobster tail. So it's spicy, it's sweet, it's saucy, big pieces of green onion in there. And it was based off of just like in Sri Lanka, they're like tapas. We eat deviled prawns, deviled crab, things like that. It's usually like you're drinking beer with it. And one day I was up at the Yellowstone Club for one of my awesome clients, and I'm like, man, I think that they would go for this. And it's like, that's now on constant rotation. And I would say for dessert, when it comes to the sweet end, I do this absurd, again, the recipes are a little different. I do a dark chocolate budino and I kick it with, the usual, like a little bit of sea salt and good olive oil. But then the topping is I glaze fresh pineapple with maple syrup, really good vanilla bean infused rum that I make. I just have on hand all the time, and a bunch of different spices. And I basically char this pineapple over an open fire and just keep basting it until it's caramel and sticky. And then slice it up into little slivers. And I put that on top of the budino with candied cashews. And people, like, no matter how full they are, like that dessert, when it hits the table, it's like all you hear is clink, clink, clink of the spoon hitting the side of the jar. And then you turn around, it's gone.
Yeah.
It's just this beauty. And it's that charred pineapple, that sweet kind of bitterness that complements the chocolate, and then the crunchy candied cashews. People are just like, I don't understand. And again, like we've all had budino, right? It's delicious, but that combo, there's something about it. Like I love it. It's one of those things where I'm like, this is good. I'm happy when I take my bite of it. So those are a couple of things that people ask me for pretty regularly.
That's awesome. And there's you got a lot of your favorites. You got a bunch of different, you got so many offerings, which is great. The other thing that I kind of ask is, some fun questions is if there's a dish or recipe and it, not necessarily you make it, but maybe something you've had out in the world that somebody should try. And obviously it could be Sri Lankan, but also maybe something else that you're like, it's way out in left field where you're like, whoa, I had this at this little place. Is there a dish or recipe that you'd want someone to try?
Durian.
Yeah. Okay.
Durian, dude. I think, I mean, I guess that's not a dish, so I'll think about it a little bit more, but like, it's such a polarizing thing. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, try it. Just try it. Like, get past the smell. Try it. Like, there's a reason why this chef that's traveled all over the world considers it his favorite fruit. Like, try it. So that's off the top of my head. In terms of a recipe or a preparation, oh man, I might have to get back to you on that one. That's a tough one.
Yeah, that's a tough one. I mean, and we can go into maybe a dish you've had somewhere and you're like, dude, this is just epic. Is there anything like that?
Yeah. Okay. Immediately, this place no longer exists, but I grew up on Thai food. Huge Thai community in LA where I was. And we had a family friend that took us to a northern Thai place. And I didn't realize at the time, this is 15 years ago, that most of what I've been eating was southern Thai food, like, Panang curry and things like that. And the specialty of the place was tripe soup. And like, I'll eat tripe on occasion, but I can't say I'm in the middle of the night waking up being like, dude, like I really want some tripe right now. Like it's not something I'm craving. And so we go and you have two options and this place is packed. There's a line out the door. And Tina, the friend, is like, all right, you want the spicy or non-spicy version? I'm like, I'll take the spicy. I'm like, dude, I don't know about this. A whole bowl of tripe. Like, I don't know if I can get down with this. Comes out, and to this day, that is one of the best dishes I've ever had, period, and definitely the best tripe I've ever had. I literally took it down to the bottom of the bowl, and I couldn't believe it. And I think for me, again, going back to that idea of there's no bad food, just poorly prepared food, that was another lesson for me. And so I think that if you love food, you've got to push your comfort zone. It may be horrible. You may not ever have it again, but there's an opportunity for an epiphany there because that's what I love about human beings is no matter what there is, there's someone that is inhumanly good at it. It doesn't matter what it is, a foosball player, whatever, there's someone who does it at a level that you're like, I don't understand. And that's how I felt about that tripe. I was like, I don't even know if I can replicate this. I don't understand what you did to turn entrails into something divine, not just good. Like I had that when I was 20. I had a full head of hair, dude. And like, I haven't thought of this in a long time, but I can still taste it. And I think that's the cool thing about food is that there's an opportunity to blow your own brain away.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so I would say tripe soup. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, that's why I bring it up. And then there's some fun questions I always ask, especially with chefs or especially outdoors guys. Is there some gear that you love that makes your day easy that you're like, man, this is like a fun tool? Because a lot of people like, different gear. Obviously, chefs have a lot of knives and stuff. But is there something that people would be like, like that's a neat thing to have or use? Kind of in your everyday adventures.
Yeah. I'm trying to think of like what I have like a kind of a daily user as opposed to a specialty thing. I mean, just for
either or, yeah.
Yeah. Man,
putting you on the spot.
You're stumping me here. I thought I had it
you
down.
You got a lot of gear. Yeah, no, the dairy.
I do.
A good one. Good one. Well, while you're thinking about that, I kind of just wanted to kind of review like some of the stuff you did at Flavor on the Fly. I mean, it was a
Yep.
3 episodes. You were in Maine, New York, Vermont.
Yep.
Everything was awesome. Like you got to do some mushroom foraging, which was cool. You
Yeah, it
know,
was fun.
I talked to Taku about that. Taku loves doing mushroom foraging. He's great at it. And some of the dishes that kind of highlighted for me with some of the things was the crispy perch you did with Jordan.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
that, just the flavor mix of everything you had going on. You had a corn batter, and then you did the chilies, and then you made a sauce for it. It was just like, I was like, dude, can I get some of that? Like,
Oh, they were
you know,
bomb, dude. Those were gone quick. Those were gone
yeah,
quick.
yeah. And then the curry lobster with Chef Kara, that was, I mean, her whole, and shout out to her. I've never met her. I've never heard of her until I saw your show. I'm like, the entire thing she has going on over there is phenomenal. And so, like,
She was next level, dude.
yeah,
Next level.
like full on garden, full on access to the seafood, like just awesome. Yeah. So,
yeah, I
yeah.
agree. I agree. Chef Kara is exceptional. I mean, she's a food prodigy. She started young. She was working at a Michelin star restaurant in Paris when she was 16. I mean, she's another level. And that was the cool thing about collaborating with her was even in the making of the lobster curry, like I knew what I wanted to do. There was no question. But there were little techniques that she did. She was like, well, wait a second. What if we pull the lobster meat and then we make a bisque base with that and then use that as the sauce for the curry? I was like, I can't believe I hadn't thought of that before. Really, again, pulling from classic techniques, but using those different flavors that she and I were both familiar with. And for her to just say, this is going on my menu, I'm like, dude, yes.
Yeah.
And that's the cool thing about collaboration is again, we live in our own ecosystems, but when you're with like-minded people, the creativity just juices
goes through the roof.
It gets amped. And the same thing with Jordan, right? I still remember just taking a bite of those mushrooms, the wild head of the woods mushrooms that we harvested. And literally it was meatier than the steak. I still don't understand how. It was exceptional. That crispy perch, I mean, that was a riff off of a very classic Sri Lankan drinking dish again. But I knew, I mean, when I saw that perch and the size of the fillets, I'm like, I think I know what I want to do with this. And just did it straight up OG. Instead of using squid or prawns, we used perch. And I mean, one of the camera guys is like, I don't like perch. And he took one bite and he's like, damn, dude, that's pretty good. And next thing I know, he's got his camera down and he's just popping it like chicken nuggets, man. I'm like, whoa, dude, we need some for the camera, But again, I changed his mind, right? Using those different flavors and treating it properly. So that was cool. That was really cool. Circling back on your question about what to, gear and things like that. I think when it comes to the kitchen, it's really easy to say like a really good knife or a good pan or things like that. What for me is underrated that people really don't talk about is exceptional footwear. If you're spending time in the kitchen, even if you're not a professional, but you like to be in the kitchen for a couple of hours, invest in something that keeps your feet happy. Because it's one of those things that there's no glamour in it. And, we all know that kitchen shoes are not like, you're not aiming for a fashion statement, but I think even for a hobby cook, if you're in a kitchen, get yourself some really, really awesome comfortable shoes that are slip proof, but really they keep your posture up and they keep your dogs happy, man. You know what I mean? You want them good. You want them good.
Are there some that you favor? Is there a brand or anything? Because a lot of times I try to get specific on it.
Yeah. So I could definitely give you a couple of recommendations. I personally am flat-footed. Like when I was young, I would make suction cup noises on a smooth floor. Like I'm very flat-footed. So that takes Birkenstocks right out because Birkenstocks have a really hard arch. So if you have high arches, Birkies are great. but for me, they don't work. In fact, they do more damage than good. So the two that I've really honed in on recently are the Haka. God, I can't remember the model off the top of my head. They're like a high-end Haka sneaker, but they're made specifically for industry people. And ironically, the people that use them the most are nurses and medical professionals because they have to run back and forth a lot. I'll look them up while we're talking. And they are absolutely amazing. And then my screen's not popping up when I look at this, right?
No, you're good.
Okay, cool. Okay. They're absolutely amazing. And then another one that I really like that I just got, they're those ones are more affordable. Those are called Snibbs, Snibbs, and they have a variety of sneakers and everything else. But their clogs are really, really nice. And they're like, $100. But why I love clogs over sneakers for the most part, especially when I'm working, is I've got, it's Montana, it's snowing, there's mud in the spring and in the fall, things like that. So it enables me to get in and out really quickly. Like I can slip into my clogs and then put my boots on to go back outside and come back in. Like if I have lace ups for any kind of quick movements, it doesn't work.
Yeah.
Especially because of what I specifically do. So I personally recommend clogs. Those are really great. They're classic clog, and they're just like they're almost like Crocs, but they're more supportive and they're non-slip. And I think as a kitchen professional, the non-slip aspect is really, really important to me. So those are two things that I recommend.
Perfect.
And then there are a couple of other companies as well that do some clogs and whatnot, but I think you got to find your own thing. I mean, there's huge price variation as well. Some of them are $30 to $40, and others are $250 plus. And I've never gotten a $250 kitchen clog because I'm like, I'd rather have two others, So I would say,
but I'm in the market. I'm in the kind of mindset of like, if you're spending, 80 plus hours in them a week, like it's okay to spend $300 on a pair of shoes because
dude, I'm not shy
all year, so it's not,
man.
And I appreciate that because I'm just trying to figure out like it's getting specific on it so that people know like, oh, that's what, the pros use.
Totally.
People love that stuff. So
Snibbs for sure. And then with the Hakas, it's the Bondi SR, Bondi, and then SR. So it's like their high, upper end, super cushiony, and again, non-slip. So you put those on, like your feet are very, very happy. I'm 44, man. Not that I'm old, but 10 years ago, I'd be like, yeah, whatever, dude. Like throw on a pair of sneakers, go to work. And now I'm like, dude, with flat feet and everything else, foot support is critical. It makes the difference between you being tired and you being still able, like even if you're cooking for your family and you're throwing down on a bomber meal, it's the difference between you being tired and stoked and you being not so achy and still stoked. So yeah, I recommend that highly.
Awesome.
Yeah, when it comes to fishing gear, I'm a little bit more of a minimalist, outdoor gear and things like that. But it sounds so silly, but for me, good sunglasses. I'm a Ray-Ban user, but definitely polarized glasses. That's what I use. And a really good pocket knife. It's right here, dude. Like,
oh, there you go.
Yeah, and I use Benchmade because I just think that they have beautiful blades. They are a little on the pricier end, but if I have a cheap blade, I lose it. If I have an expensive blade, I'm paranoid. And also the better the blade, the pocket knife in general, the better the clip. So a tight clip is going to probably mean that you're going to hold on to it a little bit longer.
Yeah.
But my pocket knife, if I'm fishing and I want to harvest the fish, the pocket knife is what I use to kill the fish quickly, the most humane thing to do. And also, I think it tastes better, clean out the fish. If I'm harvesting mushrooms or asparagus or wild onion, the pocket knife again. And in the kitchen for me, man, you're opening boxes and doing all this stuff. That pocket knife, I use my pocket knife every single day. And again, it's one of those things that I don't think people really think about, but I think it's a critical tool if you're indoors or outdoors, depending on where you are. Don't get crazy. And the other thing for me is I have a small knife. I don't like big unwieldy blades. It's a by definition, a pocket knife. Like, you don't need
Yeah.
a 7-inch blade. You don't need a Crocodile Dundee machete. Like, you need something that,
Yeah.
that's sharp and does the job. And
Yeah.
so those
Is
are two
that
things that I recommend.
the Benchmade bug out? Is that what that one is? Do you know?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yes,
There it
it
is.
is.
Okay.
Yep.
Perfect.
Yep. Yeah.
And
Plug
that's
in for Benchmade.
their newer colors, right? The fishing colors.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, man, and I love it because it's
Awesome.
really light. It's a really, really light knife. Fits in my hand. I have gigantic palms and like little nubby fingers. So for me, it's really, again, test it out. Try it. Like,
Yeah.
it should feel good in your hand for the different projects that you're doing. And I'm that way with kitchen knives as well. Is you don't need to go on someone's recommendations. Even for kitchen knives coming up, everyone had 10-inch chef knives, and a 10-inch blade is gigantic, but that's very traditional. And I always preferred a 7 or 8-inch blade. And to this day, it's better on my hands. My wrists are happier. So for me, if you ask me, I'm going to recommend a shorter blade. You don't, unless you're chopping like 10 pounds of fresh herbs on a daily basis, like, you don't need a large knife, man. It really depends on the application. So I'd say find the whatever it is, the shoe, the pocket knife, the kitchen knife, find what feels right and intuitive to you in your hands and on your feet, as opposed to what people are saying. Like, try it out. There's great 30-day return policies on everything,
Yeah,
like
for sure.
try stuff out.
Well, before we close it out, there was one thing I wanted to ask you about that you made, whiskey butter. You tell us about whiskey butter?
Whiskey butter. Where do we
Yeah,
do that?
did you make something like for, I think you added it to either maybe steak or a topping. Is that
Oh
something you
yeah,
made?
yeah. That was for the that was with Chef Jordan Ware in Vermont. Yeah. So basically, what we did was, I love butter, like, just period. That's a very chef thing to say, but I'm not really scared of fats in that way. And I also think that butter is one of those things where there's so many different brands and all this stuff, but I use good butter. It makes a huge difference in your final products, whether it's baking, whether it's cooking eggs or anything like that. So in that case, we have this incredible Vermont butter, like from some local spot that Chef Jordan used regularly. And so what we did was, once the steak was cooked and everything else, take a pan, we sauteed all of our veggies and everything in it with the mushrooms, pull that, and then right at the end, you hit it with a little bit of whiskey, deglaze, let the pan cool for just a little bit. You don't want it piping hot. Take cubes of cold butter, put it in the pan, and so the butter should melt slowly. And when you do that and you're swirling it, it's basically a variation of Bermonte, mounting with butter. So what you're doing is you're creating, instead of like this oily sauce, if you melt the butter nice and slow, it creates an emulsified, it's almost like a thick gravy. And now you've got butter with whiskey that's reduced, and all of the goodies from the pan, from the mushrooms and the spring onions, and you just ladle it right out. And Cook's Illustrated has a great recipe, like a baseline recipe. So even if you're dipping, if you're making a butter sauce for crab or anything like that, or lobster, do a Bermonte. So it's going to be, I'd have to look up the proportions because I know it by eyeball.
Don't worry about that. Yeah.
Yeah, but basically it's the same idea. You have a little bit of liquid. So in this case, you could just use water, heat it up, and then add your butter slowly. And all of a sudden, what it does is, instead of having this, like, the molecular structure changes. So instead of having like really tight molecules, it loosens and spreads everything up. So now you have a sauce as opposed to just melted butter. So when you dip your lobster, dip your crab, it's going to coat as opposed to just cover. And that's the beauty of butter, man. Yeah.
Boom. Drop that on us. And I'm appreciative of your time. I always leave things for the guests to say, or anything, any advice or any promotions you want to get, projects you got coming up. I really appreciate you, Ranga, for being here, and I love everything that you're doing. The floor is yours, man.
Oh, thank you so much. For me, a couple of things. Flavor on the Fly, we are going to be doing some more episodes that we're filming this year. So
Awesome.
look for that on YouTube. Follow Fly Lords or me. That's the best way. Chef Ranga P on Instagram, and we'll get the trailers going, and you'll see what we're up to. We've got some exciting new destinations for this next round. I'm fired up. I was fired up on the last round, but I'm really excited for this next one. And for me, absolutely, for, Stio has been an incredible partner to me. What I've loved about working with them is I think a lot of companies just operate in a way of, okay, we're doing business. But for my relationship with Stio, when I stepped in with them, I'm like, hey, I want to help Latinx youth in Jackson Hole that don't have access to the outdoors. Like, I want to get them outside. And so I've done multiple programs where we take these kids out camping, and I make them Yucatan style chicken tacos with charred pineapple over a fire. And again, these kids are, they're 8, 9, 10 years old, and they're like, wait, we don't have to eat a boil a bag meal. I'm like, no, dude, you eat what you eat at home, but we're going to do it outside. So now those kids can't wait to get outside. And so Stio fostering that beyond obviously some amazing gear. I just love the work that they're doing for the community. They intentionally stay small so that they can really make a difference. And that I really appreciate. And, I'm wearing a public land owner shirt today. I'm not going to get into politics. All I can say is every single day that goes by, there's less and less land available on this planet. And I'm a big believer that nature is a massive healing force. And so, get out there. Let's save it for our kids. Let's save it for our grandkids and do what we can to keep it pristine so that they can get outside and cook some trout tacos over a fire in the greater outdoors and not have to just do that on a grill at home. Because I think it's really a special thing that we're able to do. And I think in terms of advice, cook more, get out of your comfort zone. Try that tripe soup, man. Like, try it. Even if you don't like it, catalog it. Because I think that is the beauty of any art, is you may not like it, but it's pushing the boundaries in particular ways. And that's how we get to know one another and get to know the inner workings and the cultural aspects and everything else that's out there. So cook more, get out more. Lastly, Dave, thank you so much for having me. This is such an honor. I can't believe that I'm one of your amazing roster of chefs that I have been following, that I deeply admire. Like, Chef Constantino, like, I've been following him since I was in college. He was just an up and comer then. And
Yeah, I haven't had him on yet. I'd love to have him on for sure. Yeah.
I'm sorry, excuse
I was
me.
quoting him, but yeah, for sure.
Dude, get him on.
Yeah, for
Yeah,
sure.
he's, just exceptional. But Chef Taku, Chef Eduardo Garcia, you just have such an amazing roster, and I'm just deeply honored to be featured on this. So thank you so much, because this is not what I thought an immigrant for Sri Lanka would be doing. And just pumped on it, man. Just pumped to be able to share my story and also share some of the recipes and my favorite inspirations and everything else. It's a gift. So thank you.
Awesome. Appreciate you. And on that note, thanks everybody for listening. We're out.